The next one just kind of stopped me in my tracks. It was so good. Hey friends, welcome back to Pages and Grace. My name is Jess. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's talk about all the books I've read lately. Okay, so the last reading wrap up I did was for January. Is that right? I think it is. I recorded in February, but it is yet to be edited. So here we go. We're gonna rapid fire attempt not to have to edit a lot of things. I'm not going to go into great detail unless it was a fabulous book, and then I might, but we're going to talk about all the books that I've read basically so far this year. So I went and got myself a cup of coffee. I've got my tablet. I'm going to set up here. Our exercise bike is right here. And so the back of it really is a nice, it's really a nice little holder there. So let's go into the books I've read. I read a lot of books. I've read a lot of really good books. I've read some mediocre books. I'm really sorry if you can hear the TV in there. My son is entertained. Okay, so I have no order to these. I think in the other video I did order these, and I did a much better job of explaining these, but it was not a quick edit, and my brain power and focus has been many other places. So let's go quickly. Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. Amazing. I had tears. I was so moved by such a short little story. I will definitely be continuing on with that series. I can't believe it took me this long to get to it. Fantastic all the way through. I had a lot of thoughts about this book, and it definitely sparked some really good conversation in our family, which was so good to see, and it's definitely one I'll be reading to the boys here when they get a little bit older. So the next book I'm kind of an outlier on. This one was a group read. It was the January read for the Protagonist Pub Book Club, and it was Persuasion. I absolutely loved it. I see what everyone is saying. There's some really terrible characters and some pretty awful people. Pretty awful family situation. The way that Anne just takes it all in stride and keeps going, like, to me it reminded me of the way that Jesus calls us to live, that we are here in service of others and to put others before ourselves. And I don't know, I love that servant's heart that she has. It's something that I aspire to, something that I am not very good at, and I would not be like this in my own life if this was my situation. But it was so refreshing to see it in her life and in her family, the way she acted towards her family with grace, even through these awful situations that she was put in. That she was available to help, so she helped. I thought that was something that I absolutely need to aspire to in my own life. I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 5 stars. The next one, He's So Not My Valentine by Savannah Scott. I actually didn't realize the first time I picked this up that it is the second book in a series. So I'm glad I picked it up, I think in 2024 around Valentine's Day, and ended up finishing it. I didn't end up finishing it before Valentine's Day, so I was like, oh, I'll just read it next year. And in the meantime, I read a not so fictional Fall, which is actually the first book in this series. So I was thankful that I held off, not knowing that it was the second book. It was really funny. I enjoyed it. It's a continuation of the story from A Not So Fictional Fall. Now we're following the brother. Now we're following the best friend or brother. I can't remember. It was a really cute read. I enjoyed it. I love me a good rom-com every now and then. It's just a mood lifter. It was clean. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Okay, and the next one, The Letter Tree. One of my favorite books of the year so far. I really enjoyed this one. It's my first Rachel Fordham book. It's so crazy, all of the things that were woven together, and it just worked. We have the zoo, we have the shoe factories, we have all of the different things going on They write letters back and forth to each other in this tree that happens to be in the zoo. I think the blurb that really got me to pick it up was it's kind of a Romeo and Juliet meets You've Got Mail. Absolutely is. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really need to pick up Behind Ivy Walls by the same author. I don't know. It was just beautifully done. I absolutely adore the writing letters back and forth. Not really knowing each other, being pen pals, but not really knowing the other's identity. I'm here for it every day. All right, the next one, If I Were You by Lynn Austen. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 stars. It was another one for my 25 and 2025 list. If you haven't watched that, I'll link that video down below. This one, I was surprised. It kept bouncing every which way. So it's not just dual timeline. It is just multiple points in this friendship. So with this one, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was a much longer book than I had been reading. And I didn't mind it with this book. So some books are like, it was just too long. It was too much. But you got so much of their story all the way through, and how this friendship carried through from childhood through the war, and then we find out after the war how everything kind of plays out. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. Would highly recommend. The next one is also one from my 25 list, and it was Stay With Me by Becky Wade. Absolutely loved it. I've read, I don't know if we can see it here. I think it's there. There it is. The Sons of Scandal series, that was called. Yeah, Sons of Scandal Romance by Becky Wade. I don't own the first book, but I've read it. I have not picked up the third book in the series yet, and I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to go back to an older book from Becky Wade. This one we follow the main character who is dealing with addiction. At the same time, she's also kind of a Christian influencer and public speaker, but she's dealing with all of this in the background. And just her journey through healing and dealing with that addiction and handing everything over to the Lord. One thing I loved about this story was that reminder of God really puts people in your life when you need them. One thing I like about Becky Wade's books is they're not just about the romance. You get to see the family aspect of it. You get to see all these different aspects of how it affects their life. In the story, it feels like everything still fits. Like in some stories, it just kind of like, oh, we tack this on and then we tack this on. She does a really good job of weaving it all together. But really telling the whole story, not just the romance part of the story, if that makes sense. I really enjoyed it. Would highly recommend. Another 5-star read. The next one was Jane of Austen. This one was the February book club for Protagonist Pub. Enjoyed it. I have never read Sense and Sensibility, which is on my list for this year. I think that might have helped a little bit more to understand why certain things were happening that just didn't seem to fit in my brain. But from the group, it really sounded like it was because of the Sense and Sensibility to weave it all in. I enjoyed it. It was a 4-star read. It was a cute story about sisters and that bond between sisters, and they were trying to figure out a way to support themselves with their father off doing whatever he wanted to do. I really enjoyed it, but like I said, there were some parts to it that just didn't seem to make sense in the story to me, so I think that took away from it for me a little bit. The next book is Manor for Sale, Baron Included, and this one is by Esther Hatch. I don't think I've said many of the authors so far. I'm out of practice. I really enjoyed this one. I think I had this one on audio. I really enjoyed it. It was a 4-star read for me. I picked this one up after watching Shannon over at Old American Spirit, one of her videos, and she recommended it. If you like Christine Hunter, I have A Noble Masquerade here. I've read that whole series. Absolutely loved it. If you like the storyline and the humor behind this type of book, would highly recommend Manor for Sale, Baron Included. I have gone on further in the series at this point. This one, I really don't want to say a lot about the story. I don't feel like it was very long. But if you like that feel of like Regency with a little bit of humor involved, super cute stories, I will talk about a few more of them in this series here in a minute. I ended up giving it 4 stars, really enjoyed it. and I continued on with the series. All right, I'm back. Lunch is served. Let's keep going. I have, the next one is Fairest of Heart by Karen Whitmire. I ended up giving this 4 stars. Super cute, fairy tale retelling. I'd heard a lot about it from other people. I really enjoyed it. It was not an absolute favorite, but I will definitely continue on with this series. The next one was Defiant Joy by Stacey Eldridge. This was a group read along with Krista over at Books and Jams, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the conversations more. I think I liked the middle 4 chapters the most. The first 4 were good. The last 4 were okay, but the middle 4 were definitely the most impactful. So I really enjoyed how this author took you through the hard parts of life and not just sharing all the rosy at the end of the story, but to take you through the darker times and the harder times that were not always so pretty and not always so perfect. So I learned a lot, and I loved the fellowship with Krista and Chloe, and really enjoyed that experience of the group read together. And so many people that were in the chat as well. That was such a fun experience. And it finally got that book off of my TBR. It had been there, I don't know, we'd moved once with that book. I know that. It was at least 2020. I hope that book was actually published in 2020, but I know we didn't buy it when we lived here. So it's been on there for quite a while. The next book is Cities of Smoke and Starlight by Allie Ernest. I really enjoyed this book. It was part of Distant Lands book club. This one, I think it was the author's very first novel. I really enjoyed it for being a first novel. There are definitely places where there were definitely a few places where it showed, but there was so much creativity throughout the story that I do want to continue it. I just needed a minute before I continued on with the series. I know this series is well loved at this point. I think it's 3 books long, if I am correct in that. But I ended up giving it 4 stars. Enjoyed it. Definitely enjoyed the fellowship with readers along the way. Shoo! Okay, that was all for February. I need to go faster. But there's so many good books that I read. So many good books. Okay, The Secret Garden. This is my first read ever of The Secret Garden. I remember watching a movie adaptation of it when I was young. My mom and I would watch it. I think we watched it multiple times. Because reading the book, it was just nostalgic to those moments of sitting there watching the movie with my mom. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. This was also in March when I was dreaming of getting back in my garden. We live here in Missouri. We were definitely not there yet at that point. So I had to live in the garden through the book. I can't imagine this kind of start to life that the main character has in this book. I loved seeing her blossom throughout the book and how by the end of the book she is sharing that with others. It just got my heart as a foster mom. That is one of my hopes for my kids, is that not only can we give them the best start, but they can go share that with other people. I have a lot of these books on my shelf and I haven't gotten out. So this is my copy of The Secret Garden. I absolutely love it. It is precious. Definitely one that I will reread, hopefully with my boys someday. It was nostalgic for me. Even though I didn't read it as a child, it was definitely brought that nostalgia to me. And then rewatching the movie was also a really good experience. I didn't talk about Persuasion. I watched the adaptations for Persuasion. I really enjoyed them. They made me dislike the characters a lot more. I felt like the book felt a lot more of that Christ-like love. The adaptations were just rough. The second one I watched was better, but they were rough. Can't leave my coffee behind. Okay, The Victory Garden by Rhys Bowen. I have this one. I read The Victory Garden by Rhys Bowen. I enjoyed it. So reading this book, it was a little bit different than I thought it was going to be. I was hoping for more of the gardening, which there is lots of gardening. It was a lot more about the resilience of the main character, which was really cool to see. I enjoyed it. It was my first Rhys Bowen book. I remember with this one, it kept me reading. It kept me thinking, like, what in the world is she gonna do? and then something else would happen. What in the world is she gonna do now? It was a really good book. It did end up with 4 stars. It wasn't quite that 5-star read for me. All right, next I read A Road Trip Rescue by Becca Weirville. Maybe, I don't know. This one was a cute middle grade story. We follow a girl who loses her dog, sees a picture of a dog that looks just like hers a state away, and she is going through this grief process of one, she's already lost her dog and she thinks her dog might be alive, wants to go on a trip. There were a lot of Christian values throughout the book, which I really appreciated. I think that's what I saw. I can't remember who mentioned it, and I picked it up, but it ended up being about a 4-star book for me. I loved the way that in this story, the child still lets the parents be in charge. So a lot of middle grade that I read, it almost seems to be promoting a child just making their own decisions. I mean, as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, and just wandering off and doing whatever they think is right to do. I do like in this book how she was respectful of her parents' decisions, and in her heart knew that her parents loved her and wanted the best for her, and were not making their decisions out of spite. I think middle grade books can kind of toe that line sometimes, and I really appreciated seeing the opposite of that in this book. It was cute. I think there's another book in this series that I have not picked up. I'm not sure if I will yet or not, but it was a cute middle grade read and definitely promoted Christian values, which I appreciated. All right, next I get back into my cozy mystery series, the Camper and Criminals series by Tanya Kappas. I love this series. It can always get me out of a reading slump. I usually listen to these on Libby when they come in, and I finished Adventure, Abduction, and Arrest, which is book number 25, Rangers, RVs, and Revenge, book number 26. The first one was a 4-star read. The second one was a 5-star read for me. Most of them end up being about a 4-star read. When I'm reading cozy mysteries, if you're not a cozy mystery reader, I would say go into it thinking it's like an episode of a like crime show. They're not as gruesome as like NCIS or anything like that, but you'll get like the crime that they're solving and like a tiny bit of like the main character's story. And the next one, there'll be another crime, and you'll get a tiny bit more of the main character's story. And a lot of times when the 5-star read happens, it was a good mystery that I liked, and something really happened in the story, not just more of the same. So that usually makes a difference between 4 and 5-star for me. Some of them are 3 stars, some of them just weren't there for me, but they're not super long reads. All right, the next one is Pox by Sarah Pennypacker. I gave this one 4 stars. It was a good read. I liked it. Again, you have a child wandering off on their own, going against what their parents asked them to do. So in Pox, we follow a young boy and his pet fox. Again, you have a child who is going against what their parents have asked them to do. It definitely hits different as an adult. It does. So this book was a cute middle grade read. I enjoyed it, but I probably won't continue on with the series. I do still have the book on my shelf for now. We'll see. Okay, the next one was Allies by Alan Gratz. I have really enjoyed Alan Gratz books. They are historical fiction, sometimes dual timeline. This one was about World War II. It taught me a lot. So in this book, you're taken through multiple points of view, and it gave you a much wider view of what was going on. I learned a lot of just those little details that you pick up in historical fiction from this one. I really don't know a ton about World War II. I know there is so much to know and so much to learn. That's just not a time in history that I am very knowledgeable about. And so I love it, especially at a middle grade level. I think World War II is just so massive. You can learn about it from so many different angles that piecing them all together for me has been a lot over the time. So I mean, The Nightingale was in France. What was the one I read? Oh, there it is. Between Shades of Grey by Rita Sepetys. That one was from the perspective of Poland. There's just so many different perspectives of the same war. I'm actually in the middle of reading a book about Padre Pio, and he was in Italy during World War II. And so it's about his whole life, but then it's also about the perspective of some things that happened during World War II there locally in Italy. And I think that's why I have so much trouble with World War II, is there are so many ways you can look at it. There are so many things, pieces, there's so many chess pieces that were going on during that time that I need a timeline to put it all together. Anyways, sidetrack. Allies. I really enjoyed how it felt like it taught me something, but it also wasn't too in depth that I just zoned out. I felt like I wanted a little bit more. It felt like it kind of like abruptly ended, and I see why it was done that way. It just wasn't. I wanted a little bit more, so it ended up a 4-star read for me. All right. The next one, my first 3-star read, was Al Capone Does My Shirts. And this one has been on my list to read for a while. I think I heard about it. And it had I think when I heard about it, it had a child with autism, which sparked my interest. And upon reading it, I liked it. I think the representation of autism in it was a struggle for me. Let's see, what year was it published? I think that was part of it. It was a little bit of an older book. It was published in 2004, but just the representation of autism in the book made me cringe a little bit. And I know it was 20 years ago at this point. It was over 20 years ago at this point, so I don't know. It hurt my heart a little bit. As a mom of a child with autism, I don't know. It wasn't bad. There was no part of it that I would say was bad. But just the way the child with autism was talked about and dealt with hurt my heart a lot. And so, I don't know. It wasn't the book for me, and I will not be continuing on with that series. Not saying it couldn't be for you, but it wasn't my cup of tea. So it was a 3-star book for me. All right, the next one was An Overdue Match by Sarah Monzon. This is the first book in the Out of Love series. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Libraries, romance, Christian. I'm probably going to pick it up. And I did, and I really enjoyed it. All right, the next book I read was Where the Trees Touch the Sky, a Redwood National Park novel by Karen Barnett. I loved this book. It was so good. It is a Christian historical fiction about the early days of Redwood National Park, and I was hooked. So it is a Christian historical fiction about the earliest days of Redwood National Park. So in the acquisition of the land all the way to the park actually opening. There were so many things I learned about it. I had no idea. How does a national park even start? I have no idea. I learned a lot about that aspect of it. I learned about all of the things that volunteers went through to be able to save the land, and it went through different situations of things that had to have happened to get the land. It made me tear up at parts. I don't know. I am looking forward to reading more from this author. Again, like the last one, I'm a sucker for it's Christian historical fiction, and if you involve nature in it, I'm probably there. I'm there for it every time. So I know she has several others that follow along this vein, so I look forward to picking up more from her. And then I read 3 more cozy mysteries in the Campers and Criminals series. It was book 27, book 28, and book 29. I gave them 5, 4, 3 stars in a row. Like I said, they're not very long. I really enjoy them. They're just such a good pick-me-up, and in the name, they're cozy. Like watching an episode of one of your favorite shows. The next book is Iscariot by Tosca Lee. This is my first Tosca Lee book. I think I read this, I read this during Holy Week, leading up to Good Friday. And I appreciate this book. I appreciate it for what it is. My biggest struggle with it is, and it's a me thing, my biggest struggle with it is definitely a me thing. It is when you fictionalize something that happened so close to Jesus. I don't like to have my guard up so much when I'm reading. I like to enjoy the story, and learn the lesson from the story. I struggle with the parts that were filled in. And again, that's just me. If it's biblical fiction, I really need it to be about a fictional character that was around it, but not involved in it, if that makes sense. So reading the story of Iscariot was so impactful. But then there's... he's fine. He's acting it out. There were parts of it that you have to stop and remind yourself, was this actually what Jesus said? And I'm not talking about like outrageous differences. It was something that absolutely could have been, but was it? I don't know. No, we're never going to know. I don't know. I feel like when I read biblical fiction, it sticks in my brain so well that I've got to be careful not to jumble the two. Anyways, I enjoyed it. I think it was a plausible possibility, but I just don't like my fiction to be that close to actual events in the Bible. It just makes it easier for my brain to keep everything straight. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. I rounded up to 4 on Goodreads. I enjoyed it, but I think I'm done with biblical fiction that is of characters in the Bible. Like I ran into with Lineage of Grace. I enjoyed it, but So the next book was Having a Merry Heart in a Martha World, Finding Intimacy with God in the Business of Life by Joanna Weaver. I gave this one 4 stars. I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite read by any means, but I enjoyed the just reminder of don't let your life get so busy that you miss out on the really important part in your faith journey and the deepening of that faith and meeting Jesus, to focus on the parts of life that really matter and are making that impact and are strengthening your relationship with Jesus, instead of filling your life with all of these other tasks that you need to do that might take away time from the most important parts. That is a lesson that I need to remind myself constantly, because I'm always finding things to fill my time with that really aren't worth it. It is definitely a reminder that I need over and over and over again. All right. I didn't even tell you. Iscariot was actually read in April. So we're out of March and I only have 1 more book in April. I only read 3 books in April. It was a busy, chaotic time. It was also, Easter and family stuff going on. Okay, the last book I read in April was Love in the Eternal City by Rebecca W. Martin. This was one of my favorite books of the year. I loved reading through this story. I feel like I need to go visit Rome and the Vatican City now. I was actually reading this just before the passing of Pope Francis and all of the news coverage that happened after that. I'm like, I really need to visit Vatican City now. I don't know, it was refreshing. I don't know a lot about Italy in general, let alone Rome and Vatican City. I loved the romance. I loved the kind of a mystery thriller aspect thrown in there as well. I enjoyed the realness of the characters and how they were each dealing with their own situations, but they were putting it in the Lord's hands. I loved seeing my Catholic faith portrayed in a book. It doesn't happen very often. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It is going to be part of a series, so I'm excited to pick up the next book in the series whenever that happens. I'm so out of practice with this. So I would definitely recommend it. Tabbed it up like crazy. There were so many things. There were so many parts quoted in here where I was just, tearing up. It was beautiful. Highly recommend. All right, the next one. Some Like It's Got by Pepper Basham. Hey, buddy. Did you eat your pizza?
Yeah.
Yeah? Was it yummy?
No, coffee hot.
Coffee is hot. You're right.
No.
You want more pizza?
No more pizza.
No more? Okay. All right, Mommy's going to talk to friends. All right, the next book I read was Some Like It's Got by Pepper Basham. This was a cute rom-com. I really enjoyed it. I think it was like a 4.5 star, rounded up to 5 on Goodreads. Highly recommend it, just like all the Pepper Basham books. I think I like the Authentically Izzy series better, but I don't know. We'll see where this one goes. She's a travel writer, and she travels all over the world ends up in Scotland and is on an Edwardian adventure. I don't know. It was fun. It was cute. I really enjoyed it. Hey, that one was actually in May, so we've at least made it that far. There's a lot more. There's a lot more. All right, let's keep going. The next one was the next one in the Texas Ever After series by Karen Whitmire, If the Boot Fits. This one was cute. It was also a 4-star read. They haven't been my favorite reads, but they're just cute, fun reads that I have really enjoyed. The next one just kind of stopped me in my tracks. It was so good. And that was The Power of Silence Against the Dictatorship of Noise. This one was by Cardinal Sarah, and he is deep. He is deep. His thoughts about all kinds of things were just, I don't know, they amazed me. Talking about the power of silence and silencing yourself to meet the Lord in prayer. He goes through all different situations and all different scenarios that he's talked about, all different situations and places, but really quieting your heart, putting the phone down. I'm so guilty of that. I am so guilty of that. But putting the phone down, turning off the outside noise, and really giving the Lord time. And the impact that can have on your life and in your prayer life, and really listening and being in tune with what God has planned for your life. I think it's kind of ironic that I did listen to this on audiobook, but a lot of the time that I was listening to it, I was in the garden. And the garden is one of the biggest places of quiet prayer for me. My house is noisy all the time. I have one son home with me today out of 3, and it is a very noisy, chaotic life most of the time during this season. And really having that time outside in the garden, you can hear the sounds of nature around, but being surrounded with all of that and listening to Cardinal Sarah and his such deep faith and dependence on the Lord. It just, I don't know. It was beautiful. I definitely want to pick up more from Cardinal Sarah. Anyways, it was a 5-star read. I really enjoyed it. All right, the next one. The next one was really good too. I was in tears so many times reading this book. It was Rome Sweet Home by Kimberly and Scott Hahn. And it was so good. So I shared this in a video that I recorded, and I don't think it ever got published, and that's okay. I will discuss it at some point when it's time, but this year has been a lot of change for our family, and one of those changes has been that my husband's faith has just blossomed, and it has been one of the most humbling, beautiful things I've ever been part of. To be able to have conversations of faith with your spouse when that has not been a thing, that has not been a possibility for a very long time. I don't know. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna talk about it right now. But it's been a beautiful experience this year. And part of that is that my husband is actually grew up as a Lutheran and I am a Catholic, and our beliefs are not that far off from each other, but there are definitely differences. And so navigating that as a family has been a challenge. And seeing Kimberly and Scott Hahn go through similar things, I don't know, it was impactful. It was impactful. I love listening to Dr. Hahn talk about the Bible and how all of these things just work together. He has such a gift with speech and teaching. Over the years, I have watched a lot of his content, and continue to do so. And so going back and hearing his story all the way through, that was pretty good. It was pretty good. 5-star read. If it's something that you're interested in, I highly recommend it. I completely understand if it's not your cup of tea. It was a beautiful example of love and respect in a marriage, even when you disagree on things. It was so good. It's also a book that if you've ever had questions about the Catholic Church, I would definitely recommend. It's a very entry level that, I don't know, can kind of give you a glimpse into why we believe what we believe. All right, and now I went back into my Campers and Criminals series. The next book is Zoning Zealots and Ziplines. This is book number 30. I gave it 4 stars. Again, I recommend the series. Then I jumped back into the Romance of Rank series. I read The Earl's Hideaway, No Ladies Allowed by Esther Hatch, and I gave that one 4 stars. Again, it is that fun, lighthearted Regency romance, and I don't know, it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's just a lot of fun, and I would definitely recommend them. It's along the lines of, where did it go? There, A Noble Masquerade by Christy Ann Hunter. I feel like these books are a little bit shorter than Christy Ann Hunter's books, but they are just a fun experience. And the next one was There Goes the Groom, again by Esther Hatch. Really enjoyed it, gave it 4 stars. The next one was another recommendation from Shannon at Old American Spirit, and that was Mr. Gardner and the Governess by Sally Britton. This one was a 5-star. This one was really good. I know she had mentioned if you love gardening, yep. And it definitely had a lot more of that experience than some of the other gardening books I've tried to read this year. It was so good. I would say it's similar. I would say it has some similarities along the same line as the Romance and Rank series I was just talking about. But I don't know, it captured me. I will definitely be continuing on in this series. All right, I have 7 more books to talk about, and I've been recording this segment for 49 minutes. Okay. Okay, Space Case by Stuart Gibbs. This was on my list for middle grade March, but it just came in on Libby in May, so I listened to it then. It was a fun middle grade adventure to the moon. We have a station on the moon where we have different families living there, different researchers and their families. It was a lot of fun, some twists and turns, and I could see it being highly engaging for middle grade students, especially boys, which are so hard to engage in books at that age. So I highly recommend it. I don't think there was anything in it that was really too much of a red flag for me for my kids, so it's definitely one that I will be reading with them when the time comes. All right, this is one that I read. It was actually from my 24 list, 24 in 2024, and I didn't get to it, and it's tiny. I should have picked it up. Let's see, it's right here. It is Everybody Needs to Forgive Somebody. So short. I enjoyed it. I don't think I would say, hey, go pick this one up. It was really impactful. It was good reminders, but it just wasn't as deep as I was hoping it would be. All right, the next one I read is Isabel and the Beast by Marie Soleil. I enjoyed this book. I had it on Kindle. It was on Kindle Unlimited. I enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the first book in this series, and this book, I don't know. It wasn't for me. I gave it 3.5, rounded up to 4 stars on Goodreads. It was fun, but it took me a very long time to get through it. I don't know, it just wasn't pulling me in the same as the first book did. There is another book in the series coming out at some point, and I may pick it up. I'm not quite sure yet. So in this one, it's a Beauty and the Beast. This one is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I enjoyed it. There were parts that I don't know, it wasn't as believable, and it was like that in the first book, but not as drastic as this one was. But it was a fun read. I did enjoy it, but I'm not sure I'll be continuing on with the series. The next book is Jesus and the Jewish... I can't say it. Okay, I've tried to say this title 3 times now. The next book is Jesus and the Jewish Roots of the Eucharist, Unlocking the Secrets of the Last Supper. This was so good. This was so accessible. I learned a lot through it, but this is definitely an author I want to read more from. This one takes the Last Supper and really dives into the Jewish beliefs of Passover and the celebration of Passover as a whole. It was so good. This was also another one that I listened to while I was gardening. I don't know, there's something about nonfiction and gardening that just goes together for me. I don't know. I remember the last section of this was absolutely my favorite. I think what got me is it had the introduction from Scott Hahn, but it goes through the Last Supper, the Jewish history of the Last Supper of Passover, manna of the Messiah, the bread of the presence, and the fourth cup of the death of Jesus. Yeah, I don't know. It was really good. A lot of thoughts swirling about it, and I know some of them were theories, not necessarily the church's beliefs, but they were very fascinating to think about. Highly recommend. I think after I finished this one, it started a preview of Jesus and the Jewish Roots of Mary, which was very intriguing as well. So that one will definitely get added to my list as well. All right, the next two books I read were part of the same series, and that was Heart of the Mountains by Pepper Basham and Hope Like Wildflowers by Pepper Basham. I actually started this one thinking it was the next book, and it wasn't. And when I realized, I was like, oh, okay. So I switched over to this book. And then when I finished it, I had to immediately go here because there were things I heard. I was like, I need to know what's going on. So in The Heart of the Mountains, we follow Cora, who is the sister to the male main character in the first book, in Laurel's Dream. I don't know how to describe these books. They're historical fiction, but they just feel so deep and rooted into this area and the culture, and it is, I don't know, they're beautiful. I would highly recommend all of them in this series. And then this one, we finally follow Kizzy McAdams, who was sent away in the first book, and we finally get to see her story, and again, it was beautiful. I don't know, I hope there's more in the series to continue. So those books, I absolutely love the heart of the books and the heart of the characters and how they're just dealing with life the best way they can and taking the next step forward. Lots of things happen to them along their journey, but they just keep taking that next step forward. And it's so beautiful and impactful, and just go pick up the series. I really enjoy it. The next book is another one of those series. This one was a little bit creepier. I mean, obviously you're talking about a serial killer. It's going to have a little bit of creepy factor. I don't own it physically yet, but that is Every Hour Until Then by Gabriel Meyer. And it's the next book in the series, and it doesn't fail. So if you haven't picked up this series yet, it starts with When the Day Comes. In each of these stories, we follow a time crosser who lives two lives simultaneously. They have the same first name. They look the exact same. They're just living in two different time periods with different families. And in one of the situations, one of their parents was also a time crosser as well. In this one, we follow two timelines, and they are, I think, 50 years apart. So in this book, we follow two timelines. The first one is 1800s, around the time of Jack the Ripper, and then right before World War II. These stories always leave me guessing. Sometimes you can kind of see where it's going to go, but you just can't see the path of how it's going to get there. This one did feel creepier. I would say the first half was a little creepier, and then it got a little bit better for me. I do not read creepy books, and if I do, it's during the day when my husband's home, because I don't like that in my head. But it wasn't too much for me. So it always brings it back to their faith and trusting in the Lord's plan for their life. I love revisiting the characters from previous books. As the main female character in this book is the daughter of previous characters that we have learned about. It was book 5 in the series, so there's a little ways to go to catch up with it, but there'll be another book come out in November, I think, is the next book in this series. I don't know. I've enjoyed all of them so far. The last book I technically read in June. Today is June 3rd, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it quickly, and go ahead and put it on this wrap up. It was Tornado Alley by Lainey Ross. I don't know, tornado stories, I thought it would be fascinating. It was okay. I enjoyed aspects of it, but there were a lot of far-fetched things that were happening. I don't like to DNF books. I just don't. But I almost did. And I probably should have. But it ended up being 3 stars. It was okay. If it's something that interests you, go ahead and look into it. All right, those are all the books I read. We're done. We made it through. I don't know how long this video is going to be. It's going to be atrocious to edit, but it'll get out. I love chatting down in the comments below with your thoughts on the books and your experiences and absolutely your recommendations based on what I have enjoyed in my previous months of reading. But if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.